Hello. How's it going?
Wade.
I accidentally followed the Zoom and I was like, this is different.
Yeah, not quite this is not the room you're looking for.
That's
Dude,
right.
it's so funny on the days that I don't wear the local energy hat, Wade wears it. It's not, we don't plan this at all. It's not like we try to figure this out.
I
So
don't know that we should look like we try and plan it too much.
never.
You got his nice and curved though.
I'm a baseball player from the
Mhm.
90s. It was all the way down, it had to
Yep.
be all the way down here. And it kills me when my boy, like, I touch his hat, and he wants to keep it flat and everything. So it's funny. What do we got going on for hats today? It's Macias,
Macias
right?
Industries. Yep. Macias Industries.
And
Yeah.
what do you,
I got
rigs and
rigs and fins. You and I talked about the single, double, triple rig.
the one with the surfing and stuff. All right. That was a sweet picture, by the way.
That it is a sweet picture.
Mhm.
JJ's a good dude. We get some good photography out here. It'll be, even better if I get to go surf off of one of those sable rigs someday. It'd be fun.
That'd be pretty awesome.
Anyways, so Juan, dude, we're so excited to have you on today. So wait, I don't know if I told you, and I'll start the show here in a second, but this is
Okay.
just all backstory. But so I was making his hot sauce and I couldn't come up with a name for it. So I sent the copy over to Juan and he came back with like 5 names. And the top one was friction reducer. And I was like, that's the one we're going with. So
I like it.
anyways, he's the marketing genius behind the name.
I gave one of those to a completions company man yesterday
Did you?
out
Okay.
on the site, and he immediately took pictures of it and started sending it to all his buddies and laughing.
Sweet. Welcome to Local Energy. My name's Peter Brecht. I'm here with Wade Spear, and our guest today is Juan Macias. Juan, how are you doing?
Good. Excited.
Yeah, you told me you got up at like 2 a.m, just so you could make this recording.
Yeah. I had a couple customers I had to get out to this morning and made
Yeah.
sure I made time for that. Brought a rig breakfast and had to go see another one.
Bring us up to speed. Like, what's new and exciting in your world, and what are you doing these days?
Yeah. Busy. Always working. Wagner Energy's keeping me busy. Visiting rigs, going on jobs, running all their social media. Macias Industries as well, busy. Lately, I've had a lot of people reaching out, just graphic design, marketing ideas, just always emails, text messages, busy.
Well, you are the mastermind behind our friction reducer hot sauce name. So you're the right person for the job, and just want to say thank you for that. So
No, I appreciate that.
your social media energy is unmatched, I think, by a lot of people. On LinkedIn, I just look at your posts and the number of impressions and your photography. You got the marketing company on the side. What brought you into, first of all, oil and gas? And then like the second part of that is the marketing side of it. You don't find a lot of guys that are tried and true oil and gas marketing people, right? It's usually one or the other.
Yeah, so oil and gas kind of just happened. I did 2 years at Ohio State, tried the college life, and then, decided to try and make money instead. I was working for a carbide manufacturing company out here in Pennsylvania, and it's next to a trucking company that hauled tools for Baker Hughes. And the one of the truckers got out of the truck while we were all sitting outside and said, "Hey, any of you guys want to work in the oil field? Baker Hughes is hiring, apply." And about a week later, I was in orientation for a wireline operator position at Baker Hughes.
So what'd you
All right,
start doing
buddy.
at Baker? What was your first job over there?
I was a wireline operator.
Gotcha. How'd you like that?
It was fun. It was cool. I mean, I was basically thrown onto a crew, put on the back of a truck, and started tearing down Baker 20s. So
Right. That's
and
awesome.
learned from the ground up.
What year was that?
2014.
Okay. It was still blowing and going up in the Northeast, still really
Oh, yeah.
busy?
Yep.
Okay.
No, they were busy. They were hiring people left and right.
All right. It sounds very similar to how I got started at Baker. Baker was
Mhm.
my first job too as an MWD. I
Yeah.
I was told they were hiring anybody with a pulse. How long were you an operator for?
2 years.
Just run around all over there
Uh,
in the Northeast? Ohio, Pennsylvania, kinda all in that area, or
I got volunteered to work all over. I was in North Dakota. I was in Oklahoma City. I was in Midland. Almost went to Bakersfield, but ended up not. So I was all over the place.
From there, made your kind of your next move, right? Because man, I think about it, like 2014, it's 11 years ago. Like, oh my gosh,
Yeah,
time
that's a long
flies.
time ago.
So you've had almost over 10 years of experience at this point. But so started wireline. What was your next kind of phase from there?
I started running a truck for gyro data, running gyros, setting whipstocks, motor orientations, that kind of stuff.
Okay. And then currently you're with Wagner Energy. So 10 years later, more of a wealth of knowledge, right? But what's your day to day with Wagner?
Yeah, day to day, I'm usually out the door by 5 a.m., have a list of rigs I want to get to, customers I want to see, or, potential customers to try and get in the door with. And I'm usually just spreading the word and knocking on doors.
Gotcha.
What's Wagner's focus?
So our main service is torque and test, but we
Okay.
provide torque and test, hydrovac, water blasting, all sorts of things. A lot of stuff you can get into with all that equipment.
Yeah, no kidding. Where are
Yeah.
you based out of?
Wagner is based out of Marietta, Ohio. So it's
Okay.
a couple hour drive for me, but I have rigs right by my house that we're working on, so
I got you.
we're all
Awesome.
over the place.
That's cool. What's your so anyone in a sales position where you have to go talk to people? I mean, I think food is like a great way in, right,
Yeah.
to talk to people. But that
Yep.
said, I mean, are you having to, call people like cold calls and stuff like that? Or is it more like on, boots on the ground for the most part?
I'll definitely cold call. Like I'll
Yeah.
I'll get contacts from people and reach out or send emails, but a lot of it is I like being face to face. I like visiting the rigs and
Yeah.
getting to know them.
Okay. Understood. And how big is the company you're with?
Wagner is a pretty small family-owned company. I want to say there's a total of 8 of us.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Right now?
Gotcha. So that's really special. I worked for, I've always worked for smaller independent companies, and mostly because I just like the flexibility or the ability to kind of lead and get into certain things or raise your hand, right? Take the initiative on parts of it. But as soon as you kind of get into that corporate life, it's definitely more structured. There's definitely benefits to it, but they kind of tell you what to do and where to go and how to do it. It'd be my impression too. Is that the same in oil and gas?
I've worked at a lot of bigger companies, but it's definitely a lot more intimate at the smaller companies. I'm talking to the owner 10 times a day.
So if you got a rig that you're trying to get onto and having a hard time getting in the door, what's really popular?
But I like bringing beef jerky first. They like beef jerky more than donuts.
Used to have our rigs a lot closer to the house, so I spent a lot more time out there. And there was some beef jerky that some of the vendors brought by that were from this butcher shop in Tri-City. And it was, like you say, it was absolutely amazing. Whenever I'm driving through there, I still stop and get some of that jerky because it was so good. And it keeps forever. So
Yeah, no, there's one up here called 84 Packing that's just outside of Washington, Pennsylvania. Anytime I can stop there and grab 3 or 4 bags of it because I know I'm heading to 3 or 4 rigs just to pass them out.
So tell me about Macias.
Macias Industries.
Yeah.
It kind of just started back in COVID. I got laid off. What was that? April of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And I started into like woodworking and stuff. So that's what really started it, was just artwork. And then it morphed into doing graphic design, and then it morphed into doing just more stuff. It was basically a hobby that people kept asking me to do for them, so started doing it.
So what does that look like today? I mean, how do you still spend quite a bit of time on it? And is it still some woodworking
Yeah,
stuff,
I
or is
mean,
it mainly the
you know,
digital?
Yeah, I mean, Wagner is my 9 to 5, but
Right.
Macias Industries, I'm the rest of the day. I run, a few social media pages, always
Okay.
taking pictures, always, scheduling posts and creating graphics, and
Gotcha.
always finding more stuff to do.
That's awesome.
The one thing I've learned about oil and gas is a lot of companies, I mean, massive producers, right, will have like a website with like just a logo and a phone number, right? It's very much, they don't have a social presence. And I've always been, I got a degree in marketing, which is basically saying that I got a piece of paper that you can light on fire because it's not worth anything, right? But with that in mind, I think I've always kind of looked at things from a marketing lens, and it's been intriguing to me that you can have, such a massive company, massive operation, very little social media and marketing presence. When you talk to an operator like that or a company like that, are they asking like, hey, we would like to, kind of turn into something else here? Noble, for example, whoever's running their videos is crushing it. And they really weren't, if you looked at their site, wasn't anything special up until about 3 years ago. So like, what's been your impression of those bigger companies that are kind of turning the corner on the internet?
Yeah, I mean, it started when I was at Gyrodata after COVID. The person that was running their social media page reached out to me and was just like, I need you to start feeding me pictures. I need to start posting. I need to start doing this and posting from the field and all these different things. And that's what sparked me, taking pictures of everything, running the drone, doing all the different stuff.
Yeah. And so your drone shots, are you DJI? What are you running for that?
Yeah, I just run a DJI Mini 2. I need to upgrade it so I can start shooting vertical, but
yeah,
that's what I got for now.
That's all
It
right.
works.
No,
It does the
dude,
job.
those work so well.
Yeah.
I had one trip in Puerto Rico and it was windy, and my wife's like, you shouldn't fly it, and I did anyways. Crashed it in the sand and salt water, and it was cooked. But they're fun to fly, man. I got to get another one, and the technology's gotten so much better. And then stills, are you with Canons? Or Sony? What's your camera?
All those pictures that you see me post are from my iPhone.
Really?
Yep.
That's insane. Those are really impressive.
I do have a Canon. I don't bring it out that much, but yeah, mostly my iPhone.
That's awesome. So shot on iPhone's a real thing. I can't, even though I've got all this technology in my pocket, I can't figure out how to frame things right. I mean, it's impressive that I'm even on camera right now. I'm going to be honest with you. This took a lot of work to set up. One thing that I've been asking is, if there's something in the oil and gas industry that you would change, is there one thing that you would maybe want to, you know, get rid of, modify, change, permanently going forward?
That's a tough one. I mean, the biggest issue that I run into right now, I guess, is just the changeover with the generations. I guess the gatekeeping mentality would be one of the things that I would want to get rid of or change in the industry.
That's a great answer. I hadn't thought of the gatekeeping term in that context, but when you say that, are you talking about knowledge sharing, just access, or is it willingness to change, or even just have a conversation? Like where do you see that happening the most?
I guess both. I know knowledge sharing is a big one. I mean, coming from bigger companies like Baker and Gyro Data, they do a lot of training, but sometimes they only have so many slots for training and they want you to share data. Well, they'll send the older guys that have been there for 10 years first to come back and give us the data. And they're kind of like, "Oh, I'm not giving this to you. You're going to take my job." Just the mindset.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Wade, just curious, like, I mean, you've been in this 15, 20 years, right? Is there any color on that?
Maybe in a little different way. For me, peaks and valleys of activity is really difficult. I mean, you'll go like I started in 2006, and like I said, they were hiring anybody with a pulse, and so everybody's kind of piling in and getting these great jobs and doing all this stuff. But then into 2008, the financial crisis hits, and we're just laying off people left and right. And some of those people come back, some of them never do. And it feels like over the last
Hmm.
2 decades, the cycles that we're seeing with this hiring, and then just, cutting as much capital as you can, capex as you can. It seems like those cycles are just accelerating. And I think if we could level that out and kind of get it to where, hey, you're here, you're doing your job, like keep it going. I think it would give people a lot more confidence and stability, and maybe it would. From what Juan was saying there, some of those people are looking forward to that next valley, and they're trying to protect against that because at the end of the day, there is. I mean, there's a finite number of jobs, and you're competing for it. And I know across the board, I've heard from different people, young and old, who are kind of looking ahead, trying to secure that next spot, and it can definitely lead to what I would say is some poor situations, and
Yeah.
I'd say too, I think there's definitely, I've been on enough rigs to where, some of the older consultants are, kind of, talking down to some of the younger guys and doing all that stuff. But at the end of the day, everybody's got something to add. Everybody's got information and knowledge and experience that could help the job work smoother. And so what you got to do is you really just got to find the people who are willing to share that, regardless of what they think it's going to affect their job or not. At the end of the day, you just got to realize like the more economic wells you drill, or the more economic, I just say, options you do, the more likely everybody is to keep a job. And so you just kind of gotta work together, I think, in there. And it's really sad to hear that though, because I
Yeah.
mean, there is. I mean, you go back and you look at the oil field. I mean, the 1980s, there was a huge bust in there. I mean, there's an entire generation of guys that never entered during that time. It's just because there was no work. And so we get into the late 90s and things are starting to pick up, and you've got guys who are nearing retirement age and but have tons of knowledge and experience, and then you've just got these young guys who are either straight out of school or have no idea, and there's that entire missing gap there. It created a great opportunity for me because anybody who's willing to stand up and take responsibility and accountability and work hard was able to move up quickly and learn a lot of information and get a lot of that experience. To have that being gate capital, I would never, I would never have the knowledge and experience I do right now if the guys ahead of me would have kind of worked that way, and so that's just tough to see.
Yeah, and I think, like, I don't know, I spent way too much time on Twitter, but there is this sort of mentality, I think, too, where you can combat it by trying to befriend people and trying to learn from them, right? Which is
Mhm.
more my approach. Like, I'm honestly I just want to ask questions. I just want to understand how things work, why they are the way they are, and then seeing, can I slowly help evolve something? And then there's the other side of it where some people just prefer to attack the other side, right? And say like, hey, you're doing it
Right.
wrong. This is old regime. Like it's more of a
Hmm.
punch down mentality. And it's just hard to be attracted to that, right? So I think that's one of the reasons why I've loved following your posts is you're so optimistic, and you may not consider yourself an influencer, but
Hmm.
I think you are in a sense, right? You've got a following of people, and they're attracted to that positive energy. So I think you're going to get through those gatekeepers a lot quicker than you think. And I think we'll see that more and more over the next couple of years too.
Yeah. And I mean, I try and take my own advice. And if people come up to me, if they ask a question, I tell them. If it doesn't matter who they work for, or what their position is, or even if they work for a competitor, if we're trying to learn something in the industry,
Yeah,
I don't mind helping somebody out.
yeah. How have you been using AI in the field?
I don't know everything about torque and test. I don't know everything about, hydrostatic testing a drilling rig, or what components do what. I'm still learning all of that stuff, but it definitely helps, if you ask it a question about certain types of valves, or just, functions of the rig, or functions of a certain pump, or, specs of a pump. It's real easy to find that stuff.
Really? So just like regular ChatGPT Claude is giving, pretty solid answers.
Yeah. No, it
Okay.
does sometimes. I mean, I think it definitely helps. I ask it a lot about certain stuff, so I think it's getting used to looking for the type of answers that I'm requiring. But
It's starting to
Right.
profile you a little bit. So it's
yeah.
starting to know
Hmm.
like everything. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I gotcha. And it knows what you like to hear too,
Hmm.
right? It agrees with you.
Yep.
So let's talk about, if it's okay, get into maybe some of the technical side of torque and test, right? I know it's something that you're getting into, and you spent some time doing already, but what is torque and test? Like what are the use cases?
Yeah. I mean, the main thing that all torque test companies do is BOP testing. It's required, by the state to have mandated pressure testing for the rig to make sure it's not going to blow out. It's depending on the state, depends on how long how long the tests need to be for the min and the max. And different rigs have different BOPs have different pressure ratings that you need to test to. All the components of the rig have different ratings you need to test to. But there's a lot of tests. We could be testing for 12 hours on a rig and still be chugging along. It's different by state, but it's required, and it's
Yeah.
something that is very important to, the operations.
So you're dealing with not only different types of rigs and different companies, but you're also dealing with different regulations per state and
Yeah.
area. I mean, that is a lot to keep track of. I mean, I can't even, like, that's just a lot of information.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's definitely a lot to learn. I'm still learning all of it.
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
been with Wagner for 6, 7 months, so I'm still learning all that type of
yeah.
information.
And wait, I'm imagining you've obviously see this down in Oklahoma as well.
Oh yeah, the OCC for BOP testing and all that stuff. We have to do it every 21 days. Like you said, we've got 30-minute casing tests, and we've got test chokes and BOP everything. And so, yeah, that's something that's done everywhere. Kind of echo what Juan was saying. I mean, every state is different in terms of the requirements. So yeah, be able to know what that is, and then know what each component is and what you got to test it to, and everything else is something you definitely have to stay on top of for the regulatory agencies. And it's one of those things that hopefully you never really use it.
It sounds like insurance. Is there a state that that you guys you look at it like Ohio, okay, 30 minutes here, Pennsylvania, 5 minutes. Is there a state that you're just like, man, this is too much paperwork?
Wagner really uses the digital recording, so
Okay.
we don't usually chart whenever we test like the old Barton charts.
Yeah.
A lot of our stuff is saved on the actual pressure gauge, and then it auto populates into a report. The report could be 5 pages long, it could be 20 pages long, depending on everything that we're doing and the amount of tests and everything. But paperwork isn't crazy. It's
Okay.
it kind of does itself. Even with the charts, it charts itself. You just gotta write the little bit of information on it after the end.
That's really cool. So how do you, okay, I'm just going to go, is this like, checking a tire pressure, or is it more involved? It's got to be more involved than that.
There's definitely more involved. Yeah,
Okay. All right.
there's
Gotcha. So you're turning wrenches.
Now, if you think about it, what you're really doing is you're opening and closing valves to like isolate certain components, and then you pressure that component up, and you're making sure that that component holds. You can't test the whole system at one time, right? Because if there's any kind of a leak, then you're not really sure where it's at. Plus, a lot of the components are tested different pressure ratings. Whether it's your annular or your blinds or your chokes or whatever it is. So it's a bit of a process, and it's definitely a pretty long checklist to go through. And if you got any failures, it can take a while to switch out components and repair it and get a positive test.
Oh yeah.
What's the riskiest part of that job then?
I mean, as long as you know what you're doing, it shouldn't really be too dangerous. You know which valves you have open, which valves you have closed, which way everything's going. Making sure you're not pumping directly on the wellhead. If somebody messed up and opened something they weren't supposed to, and you're putting pressure where it's not supposed to go, then you have some problems. But
okay, pretty much. I mean, you consider it a pretty safe job then. That's cool. As long as you're following directions, we're good. Wait, are you still there?
Yes, I am. But the storm alarms went off. They're testing the alarms.
Last week, Wade, when you dropped off, and it was totally fine, but I was with Steven, and he starts talking about all these war stories, and I'm like, God, I wish Wade was here because he would actually be able to dig into that more. He's telling me he's measuring a 16, and he's telling me it's really good, and I have no context. I'm like, okay, cool, it's a 16, So
Gotcha.
Wade is you're the soul of the show, and we got to keep it that way. So I just maybe we could get into a little bit more oil and gas, and then we'll do a handoff and call it a day. Is that cool?
That works.
Wade, is there anything we could grill Juan on for the next 5 minutes?
Well, it's a question I kind of ask, but frequently. But what's activity looking like up there right now?
It's a lot of mergers and acquisitions right now. So you have the bigger companies, the EQT, CNX, they're buying up a lot of the smaller companies.
Right.
So they're gaining rigs, but the rig count's not going up. Rig count's staying the same. It's been pretty flat, around 36, 40 rigs for the last year or so. So it's staying about the same.
Staying steady.
Yep.
When you see those mergers and acquisitions, do you either benefit or lose from them big time? I've seen a lot of times, a company comes in, they kind of take over 3 or 4 rigs, and all of a sudden the vendors on there kind of ousted, and somebody else is now on them. Do you see that quite a bit, or with torque tests?
I've been on a couple locations when some of those mergers happen at midnight, and I watched consultants get walked off location.
Stuff.
I mean, that was years ago but I've seen it a few times.
I got you. And as far as with Wagner and all that is involved, I mean, do you gain, or have you been gaining or losing work because of any of that lately, or is it still
It's
pretty
definitely
steady?
helped us in the last few months. There's been a couple big ones bought out by some other companies. It's definitely helped.
Okay,
that's great. That's good. That's
Yeah.
good from a Wagner perspective. That's fantastic.
Yeah, no, it's helped.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're one of the a smaller company. You might be one of the kind of it's in growth mode. Really, it sounds like from a high level.
Yeah, I mean we're definitely growing.
Yeah.
We've got a few more rigs in the last couple months that we didn't have before. We had to hire a couple people, and just we're continuing to grow. Gain a couple rigs, hire a couple more people.
Yeah, rad. That's awesome. It's really cool, and a lot of it comes down to you, right? Just coming through.
Yeah, I mean, trying, making relationships, just getting the name out there.
Yeah. Well, how can our listeners help you out? I mean, we'll send you. Hopefully, they just want to DM you some names and say, "Hey, we need help." Obviously, up in your area, but what states are you guys operating in specifically? And we'll
we're in Ohio, West Virginia, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
We get some calls from Michigan. We get, there's work in Kentucky that we're close enough to get to if they call. We're talking to some people about possibly, going a little further out. So we'll see if that happens soon.
Gotcha.
That's awesome. Cool. Great. We'll leave with this, but where can people find you? I know I'll leave these in the show notes. You're on LinkedIn.
Yeah,
I'm on
LinkedIn, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. You can find me everywhere at Macias Industries, or if you type in Juan Macias, I'm sure I'll pop up a bunch of those places too. But Macias Industries on everything.
Perfect. Yeah, you got the ultimate handle. Like my username on Instagram and X and all these, they're completely different.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how many Peter Brecks are out there. It just drives me crazy. And then Wagner Torque and Test. I think you guys have a website too for the company, and I'll include that too. So
you can find Wagner Energy Services on everything as well.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
Well, thank you guys for joining us on this week's episode of Local Energy. Juan, thank you so much. Wade, as always, thank you for your wisdom and questions. We'll see you guys again next week.
Thanks, Juan.